Ladies and gentlemen, the show starts in 3, 2, 1. Tonight on the DDM Comics radio program. The latest news from the comic book industry, pull list reviews, and our picks from the long box. Don't forget our main feature. It is sure to have you huddle around your radio set all night. Stay tuned.
We are the future, Charles, not them. They no longer matter.
I'm sorry, this is the fun beak, the humdrum beast back there. Please, no gang signs. No, throw it up, I'm kidding.
Told you that. Look, kid, you and I are gonna be good friends. You just don't know it yet.
Hello and welcome, comic nerds of all ages, smells, and sizes, to the very first episode of the DDM Comics radio program. I am your host, Danny, from beautiful, sunny Northern California, and with me, as always, the man beyond the wall, the protector of Westeros, the slayer of dragons, Mr. D himself. Mr. D, how are you doing this fine Saturday morning, sir?
I'm doing awesome, thanks. And you know, things are really looking up here now that we don't have Craster in his keep banging his daughters and feeding his kids to White Walkers. Things are really starting to changes.
Things are really picking up there, huh?
Definitely. On a serious note, though, I'm super excited to be here. You know, we spent a lot of time getting things ready, trying to do this the right way, and I hope folks enjoy it.
I think they will. Just to sort of touch on how the show is going to be structured, the first thing we're going to do is we're going to run through some news, and then we're going to move on to our main topic, which is the cost of reading comics, and then we're going to move on to a segment that we call Pulls from the Long Box, which is where we each have picked a back issue or something from the past that was important to us, or maybe a comic book history, who knows, and then we'll be done. So, Mr. D, if you're ready, let's get started with some news. Are you ready?
Yeah, let's do it.
Oh, good.
Now it is time for the news. Brought to you by...
Today's news segment is brought to you by Adamantium. Don't be afraid to seal the deal. Get your Adamantium today to keep your bone harder than steel. Operators are standing by to help you get and give the injections of a lifetime. Call now.
Oh, you like that?
That's awesome.
All right, so the biggest news right now has to be Captain America and his Hail Hydra deal. I've got my books out here, and I have some notes on it that I forgot to open. So, here we go. So, did you read the Free Comic Book Day one?
The Free Comic Book Day Captain America?
Yeah.
No, I didn't. Our local shop, by the time I got there, they didn't have nearly as many books as a lot of other people posted up around the web that I saw. Like, there were several things that I didn't even know existed until I looked at what other people had picked up at other shops.
Oh, like what free comic books were out?
Right, exactly.
Oh. Well, when I read it, that's when I told you, like, hey, this is going to be awesome. But I didn't know it was going to be awesome for the Hail Hydra reasons at the time. So, in the Free Comic Book Day edition of the Steve Rogers thing, it starts off with, like, a Senate meeting with, like, Sharon Carter talking to a committee, and she's, like, the liaison for S.H.I.E.L.D., and they're talking about Hydra being new and using social media to recruit people, targeting public spaces, and generating a lot of fear. They're basically making Hydra a parallel to ISIS, is what I felt was going on. So when I went back after reading the first issue, I went back to look for any, like, foreshadowing of Steve, like, turning, and there was only, like, one instance, and he's torturing a guy, and he has, like, his new shield, like, I don't know, I guess it kind of, like, superheats on the bottom, and in one of the panels, Sharon's asking, you know, does he know anything? And then in the other panel, you just see the dude, like, scared in the corner, like, petrified, and then Steve is like, no, I'm sure he knows nothing. So that was the only, like, super mean thing that he was doing. But then after that, he, like, totally condemns Hydra, busts into the meeting, and, you know, talks about making a formal declaration of war against Hydra. like the U.S. has done with like terrorism. And he says, oh, that's me saying that. So I thought he was going to go into full badass mode there. And I thought it was going to be awesome. And that's when I told you it was going to be sweet. But then we read it and things were a little different. So I have to ask outright, do you think it's a gimmick? The Hail Hydra thing.
I feel like it's, a gimmick. It's a grab for attention, maybe to pull a new generation of readers into the character, or even bring the old generation back, because Captain America went through a stint in the 90s where that character was pretty ho-hum. It really wasn't until Chris Evans, that's his name, right, who plays Captain America?
Yeah.
Brought that character to life on screen that it brought a persona that people could really appreciate, that American spirit and that, badass military guy. People are into that right now, and it works. And I feel like this...
Go ahead.
This is the type of publicity stunt that Marvel might take to try to pull readers into the comics, and rather than just film, because right now a lot of people are focused on the movies and nobody's reading the books. This seems like the type of thing that would pull people in to check the character out.
I can see that. So in the 90s, you said he was ho-hum. Was he just not doing anything, or just like super boring, or what?
I can remember him, both being a little boring and not really doing much. Now, mind you, in the 90s, you're a young kid, and your ability to get issue after issue after issue in numerical order can be difficult. So, obviously, I didn't have a full run of every comic, but I can remember reading Captain America and it not really drawing me to the character as much as I can remember it when it was introduced to me, probably in like the late 80s.
Okay. So let's talk about the issue itself. There's a lot going on there. There's like 2 stories going on at the same time. You have Captain America and his mom. Well, I guess he's Steve Rogers at this point as a boy, and their abusive dad being a total jerk. And then the lady comes, and she turns out to be a HYDRA agent. I thought that was really cool, the way that they did that.
Yeah, I didn't see that coming. It wasn't up until the last few panels when you realized that that's what she was a HYDRA agent.
Yeah. Because
she seemed like the typical rich white woman that maybe takes pity on the less fortunate, female protagonist in the story. We've seen it in movies. It's in books. It's not an uncommon story factor, but for it to take that spin to where she turns out to be, an agent of HYDRA and actively recruiting it, I thought that was well put together.
Yeah. And one thing that kind of bugs me, and I don't know if you were noticing that or not, is the Baron Zemo thing. He's like, it's here. The Red Skull is telling the world that he controls HYDRA now. Lies. So when I read that, you have almost 2 factions of HYDRA, right? You got like the Red Skull, who has historically been the leader, right?
Right.
And then you have Baron Zemo, who's wanting to come into the fold. And then, go ahead.
Sorry, which you kind of, in that respect, you have Hitler's Third Reich, and then the SS Gestapo, which was ran by Heinrich Himmler. Mm-hmm. They're kind of contrasting characters in that regard.
Yeah, there's a lot of crazy parallels going on with this story. But one of the most important things, and I just flipped to this page right now, I don't know that it's important, but I'm sure everyone was wondering it. Steve Rogers is now young, right?
Right.
And the chick that he's boning is now a grandma. So, is he going to keep that up? I wonder.
Well, Steve Rogers is like the all-American boy. So
Oh, right.
if he's boning her, he loves her. It's not It's not like sex for sex thing with him.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
sex because he loves her.
And Sweet Tea. They've got like a rocking bench out there.
Exactly. One of the things that, going back to the Baron bit,
Yeah.
is he set up. There were a couple of panels. Next time I'll have my books out so I can refer back
I've
to them.
got it right here.
There were a couple of panels where he said something that seemed kind of maybe childish or comical, and that's just not what I expect from that character. And I feel like a lot of comics are doing that these days. Like, I'm looking at Deadpool humor from the mouth of supervillains, and I'm like, these guys didn't think nor speak like this up until the Deadpool era of fans came along, and they need that. It's really that internet humor. It's the stuff that you and I didn't joke about stuff like this as kids. What people find funny today. So
yeah. Well,
I just feel like they've done that to a lot of villains, and it's kind of starting to grind on me.
Are there any others that come to mind that are doing it? I mean, I've noticed it as well. I just can't put a face to any.
Yeah, I'm trying to think.
I've seen,
because I have seen it. Even as recent, I want to say there was something in Doctor Strange that was said.
Oh, that's possible. Yeah.
And yeah, I'm drawing a blank on the rest.
So one of the most disturbing parts of it wasn't that he said "Hail Hydra," but it was that he threw, who was it, Jack Flag from the plane.
He did,
and that was like, I don't know what the hell that was.
Yeah, Steve Rogers doesn't throw people.
Yeah,
off of things.
It was at that point I was like, okay, this is messed up.
And I feel like by doing that, what the Marvel writing teams did was leave the door open to change their mind later. Like maybe Jack Flag pulls a parachute that we didn't know he had, or maybe some sort of, some aircraft is flying below and he happens to catch it. Typical of comic books, cartoons, and anything fantasy or fiction based. There's those moments that you have to suspend.
Well, they
disbelief.
Yeah. And there's there's this concept in fiction, right? What do they call it? The Deus Ex Machinima or something like that? Where a character is in an impossible situation and then something completely out of left field happens to save them. It's like a mechanism they use in stories. But there was a article with an interview by Nick Spencer. I don't know if you read that or I posted it to you or not. They interviewed him right after the issue came out, and I'm just going to read one of the questions here and what his response. One of the first things most people probably think is, but hasn't he spent the last 75 years fighting HYDRA? How do you reconcile the twist with the character's history? That was the question to Nick, and he says, I can't say a lot on that front, but what I can say is that is not a huge point of concern in the story. The question will be answered, at least for the most part, in the next issue. That wasn't something we wanted to drag out. We wanted to make that stuff as clear as we could up front. So now we have gotten the big surprise. We're going to go back and explain some things to you, as a reader, have a clearer vantage point. But your vantage point may differ greatly from the characters in the Marvel Universe. So, next issue, they're going to lay some stuff out, apparently.
I think it's only fair. They left a lot of questions.
Well, a lot of people were saying it was just like a last minute thing, but he said it's been in the works for 16 months.
Well, I can kind of, I guess, speculate, since I didn't read this, but I can speculate why people would think that it was a last minute bit. Go back to what you said about the Free Comic Book Day, Steve Rogers.
Right.
One little bit about HYDRA, you mentioned. One little...
Which one? What about HYDRA?
You said that there was one panel where it...
Oh, yeah, there was one panel where he did something un-Steve Rogers-like.
Right.
When he, it looked like he tortured a guy with the heat part of his new shield.
So, that sounds like they left that open because maybe they weren't sure they wanted to risk running this story. I bet you that they wrote 2 stories for this issue, and probably at the last minute, or maybe, not necessarily the last minute, recently they decided to run the Hail Hydra, and it definitely drummed up the attention that they could have hoped for. I mean, it went back to the presses.
Man, so much heat. Cool. Well, I'm looking forward to the next issue, and I think it's going to be... I don't know what I think right now.
Honestly, I feel like if they hadn't done the Hail Hydra bit, they were going to have to do something else pretty interesting to keep people going. Don't get me wrong, the 2 concurrent storylines is cool, but if they didn't have the whole Hydra recruitment part, I'm not sure how they would have ran those stories, or if they even would have run 2 concurrent stories and made them interesting.
Yeah, probably not. Well, even if they did run both of them, I mean, they would still, because the Free Comic Book Day edition talked about Hydra turning into like a grassroots movement, exposing how some of that was working would be the only benefit to keeping the 2 in there.
That's true.
So, good. Do you have anything else to say about that one? Can we move on?
No, yeah, let's go for it.
All right. Well, you read Rebirth most recently, so I'm going to let you go through and spearhead this one. I leafed through it last night again and made a bunch of notes. Well, not a whole bunch. But, yeah, so Wally West, he's running around, I'm assuming through time, right? Like the timeline. That's
the way I understood it. He's in some kind of... I don't know how to describe it.
I don't know.
They called it something.
The Speed Force is really weird in that it just does a lot of shit.
Yeah, it seems like a wormhole.
Yeah.
And it's just pulling him through space and time.
So he's trying to connect to all of these characters in the DC universe to get remembered so that he can come back. No, so Wally West was actually... Well, they explained it in there. He was the Kid Flash, and then Barry Allen died, and he took it over.
Right.
And he was the Flash for, in the comics for, 20 years or something like that, I think.
And see, I didn't know that because, as you recall, I wasn't never a big fan of superheroes, and DC was, my least favorite superhero company or whatever, publisher. So I learned a lot by reading Rebirth. I didn't know anything about Wally West. I didn't know he was the Kid Flash. Barry Allen, I didn't even know there was multiple Flashes.
I think there are 3. The original Flash, I can't remember his name right now. And then there's a bunch of kid ones now. There's a black kid that's one, and they talk about it a little bit in there. What was your wow moment when you read Rebirth?
You know what was interesting to me is when he stops his mother getting killed by Reverse Flash. Was that what that character was called?
The yellow one.
Yeah, and it caused this butterfly effect, and then Dr. Thomas Wayne had become Batman to seek vengeance for Bruce being killed.
Right.
And I was like, oh, wow, that was... Okay, that's interesting.
Well, I think, that was there was a weird period, before the New 52, I think, where there was weird multiverse stuff going on, and there's this Convergence storyline that brings all of that together. And I think it was just a really weird time. I wasn't actively in comics at the time, so I don't know the specifics.
Right, and I had a hiatus, plus going back to the fact that this isn't stuff that I used to really read, but Rebirth really got me excited to see where this goes.
So, what part of it, though? What part of it made you say, this is cool? I think I'm going to tell you mine.
Okay.
I think it's, well, the Constantine Swamp thing was cool. Is there anything to that? It said something about him killing his wife or something?
I would have to reread it because
Yeah, it says, "Your missus is long gone, Chief. Abby Arcane is lost to the dark side and whatnot. You asked for my help against the Capes, Constantine. That is my price. You've always been a pain in the arse, you bloody turnip."
I'd have to go back and look because there's so many Swamp Thing stories and.
Well, I'm sure they just threw it in there to give like a nod, because as far as I know, they're not actually actively planning to have any Swamp Thing runs right now. That I'm aware of.
I wish they were.
But I mean, one of the last panels, like where he grabs like the comedian's button, and it's like we're being watched. I was like, that's awesome. And it wasn't until I saw that I actually had to go back and look through all of what Wally was saying about people changing time, 10 years being lost, and he's trying to explain away all these things. And then it all gets kind of tied back to the Watchmen and Dr. Manhattan. And then there's one panel where somebody actually gets evaporated. I don't know the name of who she is, though. But in the Watchmen, who's the guy with the changing faces?
Rorschach?
Yeah. So in the movie, at the end, he gets, like, torn apart by Dr. Manhattan in this exact same manner. So
I missed that.
Yeah.
I have to go back. I'm gonna go back and give it a second read because I liked it. I know I texted you and said that it was long.
Yeah.
But I just didn't expect it to be as thick of a book as it was because I don't really touch the books before I buy them. I just look at them and say, yeah, those are them, and they stick them in the bag. And so when I got home, I was like, wow, that's a really thick book. But like the last third of the book was ads, I think.
Yeah, like the last 4 or 5 pages was just all ads for their new runs. But I mean, that's okay. They're actually doing that with almost all of their stuff now, just to pump everything up. And I read yesterday that Rebirth is actually on like its 3rd printing now.
Oh, wow.
And they're all going skyrocketing in price. So I would hold on to that.
When I picked it up, Gabby was like, oh, I'm glad you got that. And I was like, oh, is it good? And she says, yeah, it's good, but it's sold out quick. And I was like, oh, okay.
Well, they had 2 covers, or maybe 3. There was like the regular one, and then they had a midnight release cover or something like that. And then they had a probably one of those stupid white sketch ones that people buy. I don't know why.
Oh, you don't know why?
Well, not the blank ones, but the ones that aren't colored.
Right. You understand why they buy the blank ones?
Yeah, because they go to the shows and get the artist to draw on it or whatever.
Yeah, they definitely do. Okay.
Yeah.
I have a Doctor Strange that's like that from the recent run.
A blank one?
Mm-hmm.
Well, I have a feeling you're not going to be having anybody draw on that.
Unless he draws like some dicks or something. Like,
yeah. Draw me a giant veiny bastard.
Yeah, with Doctor Strange like riding it like a dragon.
So, do you want to say anything else about Rebirth? I mean, it's pretty self-explanatory. They're all tied in there, and new runs are coming out, and they're being released staggered over the next few months.
So, Batman Rebirth. Interested in that because I'm a longtime Batman fan, of course. I'm kind of interested in Flash. Not enough to say put that on my list, but when I go pick my comics up, either this afternoon or tomorrow morning, I'm going to at least flip through the issue if it's out. Is it out yet? No,
it's next week.
Oh, okay. I thought for some reason it came out this week.
No.
All right, so I'll definitely flip through it next week then, because it's got me curious about the character. I'm not really sure why, to be totally honest.
I didn't really give 2 shits about Flash until a few months ago, and I just like picked up one of his comics and I was like reading it and I was like, this isn't awful. It's just unfamiliar. Like they have the villains they have there, the rogues or whatever. It's just like an ice guy with a gun. It's like, well, why don't you just take it and be done? And maybe there's an answer for that, and I don't know what it is.
Oh, yeah, maybe, huh?
But one important thing about Rebirth was that they touched more on the Joker's real name, which was a giant letdown. So, well, first, did you want to say anything else about Rebirth? You're excited for Batman. Good.
I am. Flash has me curious, but excited is not the word.
Well, I read the Batman last night or the night before, and I think I think you'll like it.
Oh, I'm looking forward to it. That's the first one I'm looking forward to reading this week. No, I don't have anything to say about Rebirth.
Cool. Then we can move on. The Joker's real name thing, I was super excited about that for like a while, and I almost planned our entire show around its revealing, and I'm glad I didn't, because it was totally stupid.
Yeah, they ran the hype machine a little too hard on that one. I remember you were talking about it for about the last month, like, oh, Joker's real name's coming, and then...
It was retarded. So, Justice League 50, The End of the Dark Side War. I read Justice League 49 and 50, and I'm pretty sure that's all I needed to read. This story wasn't that... It was just really weird. I didn't quite understand what was going on. You have Batman in this chair of knowledge, and you have, I think, Lois pregnant with a baby, and it's just weird.
It's Batman's baby?
I have no idea. So, and the Joker's name thing, it's one panel, an exchange between him and the Green Lantern. And he asks, what does he ask here? He says, I heard you ask the chair what's the Joker's real name? What's the Joker's real name? I heard it answer you. And I heard you say, that's impossible. And he says, why? And he says, it doesn't matter. And he says, it does, Bruce. Did it give you a name? Someone you know? And he says, it didn't give me a name. And I was like, come on. So, in the end, it turns out it said there were 3. That's it. 3 Jokers, 3 whatevers, no one knows. And so I was like, okay, whatever. And then I heard they were going to touch on this in Rebirth, and they did. And they said the exact same fucking thing. It's like, Joker's on his way to Arkham right now, and Batman's like, there can't possibly be 2 Jokers.
Yep.
I'm going to figure it out, or something stupid. So
something like that, yeah.
That was lame. Well, maybe they reveal it at some point. Do you think there's any reason to?
No, not really. Because it's not as if we're going to be able to draw that character back somewhere in the timeline. It's not going to be like the Joker's real name is Ra's al Ghul.
Right.
We know that's not the case. Or the Joker's not Dr. Thomas Wayne or anything like that. It's just going to be some psychopath. That's not significant. People just want to know because they don't know.
Right. Well, I kept trying to isolate, like, what origin story were they going to go with? Because there's not very many Joker origin stories floating out there. I mean, the most popular one's in The Killing Joke.
Yeah, definitely.
So, and they actually, I'm reading the Batman Death of the Family hardcover, which is...
Ooh,
collection of the new 52 Batman run. It's like, I don't know, 13 to 17 or something like that. But at one point, he makes Harley Quinn dress up as the Red Hood costume to confront Batman, but it's the Red Hood costume from The Killing Joke. So
weird.
So I know that they're still kicking it around in their brains, like if they want to make that origin story legit or not. So who knows?
I feel like it doesn't offer, like, his name doesn't offer a ton to the story, but they should really take care to figure out what origin story they want to use so they can stick to it. So it's probably best that they're just kind of kicking it around still, rather than do a knee-jerk or waste it on a story that's not as good as another one.
You know, maybe it's just part of his shtick, you know. Every time he gets caught by police or they try to run his fingerprints or whatever, it's like, oh, no system he's in, no ID, no nothing. He's just an anonymous evil. on the world. Maybe that's just what he's supposed to be.
What if he's like supernatural or something like that?
That would make me feel like I was watching the latest Indiana Jones or something.
Yeah, I know, but
just like
that's the kind of crap that people like today. I could see something like that.
Really?
Like maybe not in comics, but in
what?
Movies.
He's a ghost. He's like a specter.
No, or like some like
alien
interdimensional. Yeah,
God. That would be
asinine.
Completely weird. Oh my god. Yeah, so that's the Joker. No name. There's 3, whatever that means. I've given up investing my brain power into trying to figure that out. So, let's move on. I just tossed this in here with the DC Comics changing their logo. This was a while ago. They wanted to, I don't know, every time they relaunch something, they seem to change it, judging by the pattern I'm seeing here. 2012-ish was the New 52 stuff, and they switched it to that, I don't even know what you call that. Is that like a peeling sticker?
Yeah, I think so.
I don't know. It looks horrible. You said you were a fan of what?
74, I think it is.
The one that says the Line of Superstars?
No, not that one.
76 is the old school bullet that ran for like
76.
30 years.
That's the one.
I think that's the one most people like, unless you've never seen it before. I don't know why they just don't go back to it. Marketing, I'm sure.
I saw a fan added or like edited their new logo and added a couple stars to it, and it looked way better. They should have adopted that logo.
Like, their font is all weird, and it's just, I don't know. The new one they've made is like, it's flat, and it just doesn't do anything for me.
No.
It's not like there's any hidden stuff that I can see. Like the FedEx logo has like the arrow, right?
Right.
Between the E and the X. I don't see any of that kind of thing going on.
No, there's no Easter eggs.
Well, fine then. I think that is, wow, that's a lot of time. Plenty of time for the news. Let's move on to our main show topic here, which is, I can't find it.
The cost of reading comics, actually.
Yeah. Oh, good. Excellent. All right. So we have an audio bit for that. Let's crank that up here.
Ladies and gentlemen, it is now time for our program's main feature, made possible by...
Today's main feature is made possible by Grizzly Feminine Hygiene Products. Don't be afraid to go into the woods again. When lady time has hit the mark, don't be the one eaten by the shark. Use as directed. Grizzly Feminine Hygiene Shark Repellent Napkins should not be used instead of shark cages while diving. Consult your physician and local psychiatrist before going for a jog in shark-infested forests.
Well played. That's awesome.
If we had any female listeners, they're gone.
Yeah,
That's it.
It was nice knowing you guys.
Yeah, that was... It was just so good.
Yeah, that's excellent.
Alright, let's see here. What is an acceptable level of investment for reading new comic books on a weekly basis? I think we're basically focusing on how much money you're spending per week.
Yeah, and I think we narrowed it down to three
or four categories. Yeah. So I'm just going to read straight off here. So there's like the kid who maybe buys like 1 or 2 titles a week because he has like no money or has to save up for it, or maybe he even buys less if he has like no way to get it, just like his lunch money.
Yeah, exactly. This is the kid who's like taking snacks from home and pocketing the $3 or $4 a day his parents are giving him, and then blowing it at the shop later in the week,
digging for change in the couch.
Definitely.
And then there's the regular guy. I think that's you. It spends like, maybe 20 plus a week, but certainly not above like 30.
Yeah, and for me specifically, 30 is like 2 weeks.
Okay.
It's probably really more like, on average, maybe $15 a week for me, and that's just because I I'm kind of picky about what I.
So that's like what, three books?
Now probably 4.
Okay.
If they're not number ones.
Right.
Yeah, I would say usually 4 books a week, which is about commensurate with the amount of time I have to spend reading and then now preparing for the show. So
right,
it works out.
So then we have the regular extreme, which was me. I think I'm graduating. Reads comics daily and wants to ensure they have their thumb on the pulse of storylines and new content, averaging $50 a week. But
You're
now
graduating.
It's more like 60. It's got to be 60. I don't know. It depends on the week. Lately, it's been really high for some reason. I don't know why. And then there, probably because I keep searching for number ones on like the previews world.
Yeah, you're going back in time and picking up back issues. That's a slippery slope.
And then there's the collector who walks into the shop with his dirty piece of parchment that he's scribbled out all the titles on, and he's like drilling the staff about variants and their cost. And he go ahead.
Sorry, he looks like the comic book shop owner from The Simpsons.
Yeah. Well, they all have like the same uniform these days. They all have a beard of some sort.
Yes.
How clean it is, I can't say.
It
Some are better than others. They all have fucking sunglasses, and then they do that thing where they put it in their hair when they go in, and then I would say half of them have one of those douchey Bluetooth earpieces. I don't know if you wear one of those. No offense.
No, I don't.
And then some of them have like the cell phone holster, like on their belt or whatever.
They do. And they're always wearing like a t-shirt, and it's either got a logo on it or it's a solid color, and it almost always has like a hole or some kind of dirt or debris.
Oh yeah, there's
it's never a clean t-shirt.
Like a mustard stain down the front. Well, that person can easily walk in there and spend $100 on comics and little anime dolls.
Speaking of listeners that we have just lost, we lost those guys.
Oh well. They'll come back. We just have to do a show about Sailor Moon or something.
Oh,
well,
God.
it was so weird. Like 2 weeks ago, I had never gone to the comic shop at opening time because I just hadn't reached that level of sadness yet. I am there now. So I'm there at the door, or not? I'm in my car in the AC, and there's like there's got to be 3 of these dudes fogging up the glass to get in, and they're just waiting right for the lights to flip on, and their eyes like light up, and they're just like barging in there. But this huge, loud dude, we're talking like suspenders, jean shorts, his gut looks like one of those like, you remember those like when you were a kid they had those punch balloons where you could like this huge balloon with like a rubber band on it. His stomach
definitely
looked like that. His stomach looked like that. He busts in the store, and it's a family-owned place, so everyone kind of knows you by name there. And they're like, "Hey, how's it going?" Whatever his name was, and he just like bolts for the back for the glass case where they have all the little and like lady anime figurines. And he's just like this loud, huge dude, and he's like, "Oh, she's so cute and adorable." And I'm like, God, this is fucking weird.
Well, we have that guy at my shop too. I don't go at opening time.
I wouldn't recommend it.
I have one of those jobs where I have to be there for a certain tour of duty. And last time I was there, I walk in and there's a guy with his dog in there. And
I'm the dog.
I'm like, fucking people bringing their dogs everywhere. And this dog's like one of those corgi dogs, which is like a Lassie type dog with short legs and like a shorter body. But
was it like huge and fat?
No, it was proportionate.
Okay.
But it's like people are walking past it and he's like talking to it. He's like, "Oh, I'm sorry, honey. I know you wanted those people to love you." I'm sorry that people keep walking by and won't pet you. I glance over at him, and he's like, I'm sorry that nobody's going to come over and pet you. And I'm like, what the hell? And he's like, come on, we're going to go to the gaming area. Somebody will love you over there. And the dog lays down and will not move. And the guy's like, come on, we're going to get you some love over here. And the dog rolls.
It was a dude. For some reason, I had it in my brain this was a woman.
No, this was a man. And I'll get to him.
Okay.
And the dog turns over on its back and is like, shaking and like, typical dog having a good time.
Was it a girl dog? It had like 8 tits hanging out.
I didn't notice.
Oh. All right.
Let's say for the sake of the story, it did have 8 tits hanging out.
Yeah, all right. And you weren't touching a nip one.
I wasn't. No, as much as she tried to lure me over there, I was not giving in.
Okay.
Well, so he starts dragging her and her 8 tits across the floor back to the gaming area.
Yeah.
He's in the tightest grayish black pants I've ever seen.
Like yoga pants?
No, like jeans, like high water jeans with hiking boots and a brown bomber's jacket.
Wow.
He's got like this long hair and a ponytail and this beard, and he looks like he belongs there dragging a dog to the gaming section to get
Was he
like
one of those skinny type dudes with like the buggy eyes or whatever?
That's exact. And he wore glasses, like thick Coke bottle glasses.
Dude, I can see him in my brain.
Everybody knows that guy.
God. He smells like, I don't know, probably a cheap beer.
And like Marlboro Reds.
Yeah. And his house is, I don't know this guy. And if he happens upon this, I'm so sorry. But I just imagine him being like a hoarder.
Like, yeah, but it'd be like, he has like a mountain of VHS tapes. And not like the kind you buy, like the type he recorded off TV. He still does that.
He's got like the dual cassette with like a failover just in case.
And he has like a ton of like old Blockbuster rentals, like from when they went out of business.
Well, he bought all the blank cases to protect his recordings.
Oh, there we go.
It brings all kinds.
It does.
Was he actually buying any comics, or he's just there to get his dog some action?
I didn't see any comics or any merchandise in his possession. Not to say he didn't, but I didn't see him purchasing anything. I just saw him soliciting his people to grope his dog's tits and stuff.
All right. So let's talk about what influences what you buy. So for me, it's mostly about right now because I'm in like my Renaissance mode because I'm just getting back into everything and it's totally cool and I want to read everything, which I'm happy is slowly fading away. So when I decide to cancel a title, it's not like hurting my stomach to do so. Like
every time you cancel a title, I feel better for you.
Yeah, thank you. So right now the biggest thing is just trying to keep up, right? So that's why it's so expensive. But I'm like realizing I don't really need all those Civil War II tie-ins because I don't really give two shits about Spider-Man or which one did I get recently that was like the new Wolverine book with the girl. Everybody's all about that. I don't know. It wasn't my thing. So I think I'm probably going to stop buying all the tie-ins.
I think that's a good choice. Like you said, you don't care about those characters. And really, I mean, I know that you're that guy who has to have all the story, we like all the stories and all that, but those tie-ins, they're not going to lend that much to the story that you're going to really miss out. And you could, you don't have to like not spend that money on comics. You can find other titles to explore and check out. So, I mean, it doesn't hurt anything.
Well, it's my indie stack has grown too, because I keep, after reading stuff like Grizzly Shark and the 4 kids walk into a bank, I just realized, hey, I've had like my blinders totally on here. There's like some good stuff out there. I just have to go find it.
Yeah, definitely. You look at a lot of my comics, what's left of my comic collection, and it's a lot of indie stuff. It's a lot of smaller brands like Vertigo, IDW, Devil's Due Publishing. There's a lot of good stuff that's coming out of those publishing houses that are not Marvel. Marvel, they're
You want to say
they're
bad.
the Amazon of comics.
Oh.
You know, I wanted to say the Walmart of comics, but
Oh.
their quality is better than that. But they're a machine. They're not
Right.
They're not an art house.
Right.
They're a machine.
Totally agree with that. A lot of the stuff they do is business decisions, not comic fan decisions.
No, it's absolutely. And that's where I think the independents differ, is that, they maintain that creative control in-house between, probably between the folks who are collaborating on the project,
Right.
with little influence from, say, a board of directors or
Lawyers.
a bunch of suits who don't know shit about comic books.
Right.
These are people who love comic books and make comic books making these decisions, and that's really what it's all about.
So, when you're following a title, you basically seem to be in the camp where if I don't like reading this, I'm not buying it.
No, of course not.
Right. So, what influences that?
Okay, so I can't draw it to one single thing. Like, I can't say there has to be guns and tits in the first 10 panels or I'm out, or
Right.
The story has to flow well, and I have to like the characters. That's the biggest thing, is the characters. I have to like the characters. If I don't like the characters, then I won't read it, even if I like the story.
Mm-hmm.
Because the characters are always the focal point. That's what comics are about. They're about telling a story, but they're about characters.
Right.
That's why there's fandoms that exist around Batman and around Captain America and around Superman. They don't exist around particular stories within those series. They're about characters. So that's the biggest driving factor for me, is I have to like the character. Yeah, and there has to be reasonable character development. I don't ever want to open a number one comic of a character and not get given some sort of introduction to them, even if I know that character.
Yeah.
I think
Moon Knight, for an example,
was a great number one.
It was a great number one, and then something happened, and I think when you read number 3, you'll probably have the same opinion I do. But I had never read any Moon Knight before.
Me either.
And I felt like it was a decent introduction to the character. I was actually super excited even for the next one.
I was too. I think it's the last panel when he's standing out looking over the city and there's all the pyramids.
Oh, yeah.
It's all covered with sand. I was like, oh shit, something legit is coming. And then
it wasn't
nothing legit came.
Yeah. I think we'll probably end up talking about that at a later date.
Yeah. So going back to that, I drop books. I don't knee-jerk drop books. As you know, I wrote out Spider-Man and Deadpool and Doctor Strange for several issues before I finally canceled them.
Mm-hmm.
But
you canceled Spider-Man Deadpool?
I did.
Okay.
After I read the dance party was fun. You're right. But I don't like Spider-Man enough to read as much Spider-Man as required of me in that book. Honestly, I've never liked Spider-Man, which is funny because I have a lot of Spider-Man comics. There must have been a time in my comic reading that I've lost from my memory where I really liked Spider-Man, because I have a shitload of Spider-Man. I just don't like Spider-Man anymore. I haven't never liked any of the movies or anything.
I liked the very first one with
Tobey Maguire.
Tobey Maguire. But I think I was like 19 when that came out or something.
Okay.
I don't know. It was just really fun. I haven't liked any of them since, just the first one. And I'm of the same opinion as you in Spider-Man in comics. I don't really care.
Yeah, it's not that he's a bad character or anything. It's just I don't care about Peter Parker. I never have.
Yeah. I mean, his uncle died. Okay. He got shot. Okay.
That's sad.
Yeah, that's a bummer. Now what?
Yeah, exactly.
So, I mean, he gets bitten by a spider, and I mean, that's his motivations. I don't know. Well, the DC wrote it out with Batman, but he lost both of his parents.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's a little more extreme.
Which brings me back to this meme I saw that said a picture of Batman sitting in at like the Bat computer and Alfred standing behind him with like a tray in his hand, and he says, "This is a terrible sandwich, Alfred." And he says, "Do you know what I did to the last person that said that, Master Wayne? I hired a junkie to shoot her and her husband in an alley." I was like, "Whoa,
Ouch, dude.
the original Savage."
That's too soon. Man, I love all those. You've sent some great images to our Facebook page. Just some funny stuff.
Yeah, I follow quite a few that put out some pretty good, funny stuff that is related to comics and that sort of stuff.
The one I sent you, where it's like the Winter Soldier holding his arm, and they're mimicking the Toy Story Tea Party. That was funny as hell. That was beautiful. So let's get back to budgeting.
Okay.
Do you have a hard line?
A hard line per week is probably, honestly, about 20 for a single week is $20. And that's not so much that it's a money issue, like I'm bound by a budget. It's that I don't want to spend more than that because it's just a hobby for me, and I don't want to get into it again where I'm spending $60 a week on comics like I did in the early 2000s. Mm-hmm. Because I was left with a bunch of comics that I didn't like, that, you know, I was just buying things like, if a cover caught my eye, I would buy it. I'm a lot more picky now. And I feel like $20 a week on a non-number ones week is probably, you know, 5 books at $3 a piece, if not somewhere around there. And that's a reasonable amount. What's your hard line?
You don't ever feel like you're missing out on something?
Oh, okay. So if I'm... No, not up to this point. Not since I've been back into comics. I haven't felt like I've not skipped anything that I was like, oh, I really wish I would have got that. Right. And comics are set up in such a way that you can read 20 titles and still only get 4 books a week. You know what I mean? Because
that's true.
So I don't feel like I'm ever missing out. I just may have weeks where I have 6 books, 4 books, 2 books, no books. Like I have a week coming up that has no books. But then the next 2 weeks are 4 book weeks.
Right.
So it balances out. I know. I never feel like I'm missing out because by nature of how comics come out, I can reasonably afford to get a few comics a week, especially considering I don't really spend money outside of comics other than on my family and taking care of responsibilities.
I think my hard line when I started buying it, I think I was comfortable with 40, and I think that's where I should be. I
think that's probably wise. I mean, it's not my business, obviously, but we talk about it, and I think 40 a week gets you a shitload of books.
Oh, totally. I just have to make my decision-making better.
Become a little more picky.
Yeah. I think because I haven't developed a very specific taste, I just want to sample the entire buffet, I guess.
Right, you want a little bit of everything.
Right, but I'm slowly developing that, so it's becoming easier. Like with Spider-Man Deadpool.
Right.
I think you're absolutely right. I just finished issue 5 a while ago, and it's not that great. The only thing going for it is that it's Spider-Man and Deadpool together. Other than that,
Deadpool's funny.
And Deadpool's funny. And the dance party was great. But I don't really want to spend $30 for a 5-page dance number that I thought was cool. Like, even if I didn't read anything up to that, it wouldn't have mattered. I would have still appreciated it the same. So all the comics that came before it just were irrelevant. It felt like.
Fair enough.
Okay. So you were a pretty devout trade paperback guy, and I just assumed you were going to stay that way. So what made you make I don't want to say the switch, but what made you interested in the floppy copies again?
I think it was the fact that I found some series that I was actually interested in reading, and I figured that it wasn't unreasonable to go get a few series to read versus sitting around and waiting X amount of months for trades. If obviously there's no way for trades to come out at the same time of comics or floppies, because that's just not the way that works. But ideally, trades are still my preference.
It work? Can you just explain how it works?
How a trade works?
Yeah, I think they release X amount of issues and then...
Yeah, usually it's their volumes. You have a 50, let's say you do a 50 issue run, you're probably going to put out 5 volumes of 10 issues each.
But let's say trade releases, right? So like what I'm noticing in the different story arcs is they're segmented, right? They're segmented, right. I don't know, for the purpose of creating the trades. Probably.
Yeah, probably.
So like you'll have the first 5 issues of a series all tied into the same sort of storyline.
Yep.
And then the trade comes out, I want to say almost instantly. It's like maybe a week or 2 afterwards, and you can buy all of those in a trade together.
Yeah, usually it's a week or 2 following the last issue of that, let's call it that particular segment.
Right.
Yeah, I agree. And sometimes I've even seen it where the last issue came out the same day as the trade came out.
Wow.
Now, I haven't paid that close attention to the Diamond distribution list in years, but I remember seeing that in the early 2000s.
So, do you think that might be a way to go, like for people? Like, don't buy floppies at all, just wait for the trades, and that's what you do. That's what you buy.
I think that works for people as long as you're not doing something like this.
Is it cheaper?
It is cheaper.
Okay.
Because let's say you figure, let's say it's a 5-issue run, and the first issue is going to be $4 or $5, and then each subsequent issue is going to be $4 each. MSRP is going to tell you that you're going to pay $24.99 probably for that trade, but you're not going to do that because you're either going to go to Amazon and get it for less,
like $18.
Exactly, or you're going to hopefully go to your your home comic shop, and hopefully they give some sort of discount on trades, which a lot of places will give you like 10% or something like that off trades a lot of times, at least in my experience.
Really? I didn't know that. I've never asked, though.
Yeah, a lot of places, because trades, that's a big price tag, and I feel like it is a better value. However, if you collect for the intent of reselling later, or even if that's even a little bit of an interest to you, trades are not the way to go, obviously. They don't hold their value historically as well. But I mean, people pay a decent amount of money for collections of trades if that's your thing. You collect all 10 volumes, turn around and you can resell them pretty well. But on a 1-for-1 basis, I feel like they don't retain value very well. But it's a good investment if you can't afford to buy comics every week, or you want to save a few dollars on the back end.
So now that you're a professional comic book podcaster, what do you think that's going to do to your mentality towards how much you spend and what you look for? You think it's going to do anything?
I think there will be times when I have to get something for relevance, so that we can talk about it.
Right.
But I don't think it's going to change that much, simply because I'm not going to let it change that much. I'm willing to be flexible in those times where there's things that we absolutely I should read and we should talk about, but I'm not going to commit to like Marvel Civil War and all the offshoots and all the other fucking stuff associated with runs like that, because it's not worth it to me. And we can talk about something else.
Did you get Civil War 1?
I did.
You're picking it up today or tomorrow or something?
Yeah, and I read Civil War 0 and the Free Comic Book Day Civil War.
Okay. I think we're talking about Civil War in a couple episodes. So
I think we are.
We'll save it all for then.
Sounds good.
All right. So let's say you pick up an issue and it's like in the middle, and you just say, okay, I'm just going to give... Do you ever pick up an issue in the middle to read?
Yes, but there's criteria for that.
Okay.
I'm not going to pick up anything older, is that the term? Anything past issue 10.
Okay. And why is that?
Because if I like it, it's too much of a commitment to go back and get the floppies, because I don't like to get part trades and part floppies. I either want all trades or all floppies.
I'm kind of doing that with Injustice, Gods Among Us. I have the trades for year 1, and I'm supposed to have the floppies for year 2, but I don't have them yet. And I accidentally bought I didn't accidentally buy it. I bought year 3 just to see what it was about. And I opened the first page, and it's like Constantine talking to Superman or something. And I was like, dude, this is sweet. And I didn't read any of it, and I just went back and got one. But I've been stuck for like 2 months because I can't get because I bought the first floppy copy of year 2. And each year is like 12 issue runs and like an annual.
Okay.
So the comic book shop is tracking it down for me or something like that. So
nice.
as soon as but I might actually just have to ditch them and get the trade for year 2 and just accept that I'm going to have one floppy floating around, even though it pains me to do so.
Right.
So, okay. Well, that was the question. Like, what? Because when I got Invincible Iron Man, I picked up one of the middle issues, like 7. And then I had to decide each week what I was going to put to investing towards the back issues. And
so did you read issue 7 when you picked it up?
Yes.
And then as you picked up Reinvested, did you read them, or did you wait till you got all of them before you read them all?
I picked up issue 1.
Oh, okay.
And then I picked up issue 2 and 3, and I just read it until I was caught up.
Got it. That makes sense.
But I staggered it. I didn't buy them all in one giant go.
That's good.
So I knew where the story was going, but I didn't know how it got there, and that's what I was experiencing.
And see, that's another reason I don't like to come into runs in the middle, because I want to buy them all if I like it.
Right.
Like if there's 10 issues and I loved number 1 and number 10, I want to get the other 8. And I don't want to spend that kind of money, honestly. Because I've made some good money off comics in the past. I sold several Walking Dead comics first runs in great condition. Some other stuff over the years, but largely comics are not a good investment. Historically, most people are going to end up selling their comic collections via, "Hi guys, I'm putting 36 long boxes out, and each comic is $1 a piece." That's not a good investment.
And there's one service out there that actually does this. Like, you send them a giant checklist of your entire collection alphabetized, and they give you a bid. And they say, we'll ship it for you. We'll even come to your house if it's got some legit stuff in it. And this is the price we're offering, just so you can offload it.
Wow.
Well, I think that's all we wanted to talk about for that main thing.
Yeah, I think so too.
Was there anything else?
No.
Oh, I have my official answer. The answer is somewhere in the middle and different for everyone. You must take into consideration your income, your ability to store them being comics, and the value you get from reading comics, and your balance of actually having the time to read them. Dun,
Agreed.
Dun, dun. Cool. So I'm out of fancy audio transitions and ads, sadly.
All right.
But this next segment we're going to do is something called Picks from the Long Box, where we pick a favorite issue from, I guess, history. Something that we've read in the past that's probably older, and just bring it back into the light. And we haven't told each other what our picks were. So why don't you go first? Did you decide what your pick of the long box would be?
I did. I selected the Exterminators #1, which was a little number put out by Vertigo Comics back in 2006.
Okay.
There was an up-and-coming writer, Simon Oliver, which I kind of lost track of following that book. But there's the artist you might know, which is Tony Moore from Walking Dead fame.
Okay.
The Exterminators follows a group of kind of misfit exterminators through
like bug exterminators.
Yeah, exactly, like pest control.
Okay.
Through LA and
the mean streets of LA.
Yeah, like these like apartments and bungalows and into this like dark bug like that, you know, they have to fight like monster bugs and evil creatures and stuff like that. The art is really good. Like that's one of the things that just drew me to the book was Tony Moore's art. I'm just a big fan of, which I'm not even a fan of the Walking Dead comic anymore, but I'll pretty much flip through anything with his name on the cover just to see what kind of whatever he's cooked up.
Whatever he's up to.
Yeah, the Exterminators, I think it ran for about 30 issues. I remember they planned it to be a longer run, but they ended up ending it. Honestly, I dropped out about issue 15 because it just started to lose momentum. The first 10 issues were pretty interesting, but there's only so much you can do with an Exterminator story. The characters were just not that compelling or interesting after a certain point, and I ended up just moving on. However, the first 3 or 4 issues were really a lot of fun, and that's
so are they like, is it like Ghostbuster style? They're like walking into these abandoned project buildings to hunt cockroaches or something?
Yeah, I guess it's Ghostbusters and kind of Ghostbusters-ish, yeah.
Do they make like a bunch of jokes? Like I'm thinking of Men in Black, where Will Smith is out there and he's like crushing those cockroaches.
No, they're because you remember the humor that's present in comics today is not the same humor that you found in comics previously. Yeah, so there's not so much of that schlocky kind of. I don't even know what that humor is called.
And no dick jokes.
No, unfortunately not. What about you? What did you go with?
Let's see. I have Superman, the Man of Steel, number 5. And this is the Curse of the Atomic Skull issue, if you can wake up for 5 seconds.
Oh, sorry.
And the only reason I picked it is because this is one of the most unique comic book reading experiences that I've had in recent memory, because you have to read it sideways.
Really?
The entire comic, and it's done for a reason. It's
Wait, like your whole sideways, like you're holding like a centerfold up?
No, like you're holding like a legal pad and you're turning pages over the top.
So, like you stole your dad's Playboys, flipping through the centerfolds?
Well, yeah, if you can get the pages apart. Anyway, you have, and it's done for a reason, because you have the Atomic Skull, which is a villain in the Superman DC universe, and on one side is a movie reel, and it's a movie of the Atomic Skull, and he's playing out this scene where he's being chased by the characters and they're trying to get him and stuff. And then on the other side of the entire book is the parallel panel that's actually reality. So the Atomic Skull has jumped, well, he hasn't jumped, but he's living in this fantasy world of his movie, and then in the other panel is what he's actually doing in the real world. So in the movie panel side, you have this Rocket Man that's trying to stop the Atomic Skull, which is really Superman in the real world. And so you just have them both fighting each other, and you see what's happening inside his movie memory, and then you see Superman doing his thing, and at one point he like steals a motorcycle, and Lois Lane is there, but he thinks that Lois Lane is his love interest from the movie, so he like throws her on the back and stuff. And it was just really cool. Like, I really enjoyed the entire experience, and that's what it felt like. It wasn't just like flipping through a comic waiting for, Deadpool to talk about anal sex or anything. It was just, it was like a cool
has its time and place, no doubt.
It does, yes. But it was just really neat.
That actually does sound pretty interesting, and that's probably the only time I've ever said that about a Superman comic. I've never seen, I can't compare that to anything, and I'm actually interested in seeing that issue.
Yeah, sure. I'll take a picture and show it to you.
Yeah, that'd be awesome. And
the flipping the comic to the side thing, it's not new. It's just rare that it happens.
Yeah, I can recall seeing that, but only a handful of times over the years.
And this one, they just 2 stories. One is a movie serial, and the other the real. It was just so well executed, and that a lot of these old Superman comics, like they do kind of cool stuff like that, and it was just awesome. So that's why I picked that. It's not bug exterminating, but it is interesting.
Hey, no, I'll give that to you. That sounds like an interesting read.
And then I wanted to bring up the Grizzly Shark.
Yes.
This is by Image, by Ryan Otley, and even I ain't even gonna try the last name there. Placencia,
I believe.
Placencia. There you go. Anyway, did you read the afterthought in the first issue where he talks about where it came from and what they did? Like one of them was responsible for the shark, and then one of them was responsible for the sea bear, and they
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So issue 3 is coming out next week, and it features the sea bear too.
It does.
They're both coming back together. So that will be freaking awesome. Anyway, Grizzly Shark, basically a shark that.
Sharks, multiple. Remember?
Oh, multiple sharks. Yeah. Well, I think that's a spoiler.
Oh,
that's okay. So, how do you say this? I said it in the ad. Shark-infested forests.
Yep. Hillbillies subject to.
Oh, dude, that was one of the 2 things stood out to me instantly. And one, it's the son with no legs, right? That's still alive.
Yeah, and he's like, I haven't taken a piss in 4 days or something like that.
He's like, it doesn't matter.
He's all, you shut up. The adults are talking.
and he's like, oh, here it is. He's like, this is right after he gets bitten, and his dad like drops him onto a campfire to cauterize the wound, and he's like, it hurts real bad, and he's like, stop complaining and take this aspirin, and he like downs the whole bottle, and he's like, son, you got a death wish? And he's like, don't worry, my stomach's over there, and they like laugh about it.
That I love Grizzly Shark. There's always some weird comic in my rotation ever since I've been into comics. It was Milk and Cheese at one point. It was Frankenstein Mobster at other points. There's always some weird comic in my rotation that just is strange. And Grizzly Shark is definitely that comic right now. It just makes me laugh. There are several times where I laughed out loud reading it.
Oh, certainly.
The gruesome death scenes, the shit the hillbillies are saying. I'm like, this is great. Have you seen the movie Tucker and Dale versus Evil?
No.
Oh. Okay, well, for the folks out there that have seen that,
yeah,
I want to see Tucker and Dale versus Grizzly Shark. Because that movie is fucking hilarious. And Grizzly Shark is basically going against the same kind of characters as Tucker and Dale. And if a movie like Sharknado can get like 3 or 4 sequels,
right,
somebody has to make Tucker and Dale versus Grizzly Shark.
You think are they the guys that take him down, or is it just like their arch nemesis? Or
no, they're the guys that take them down.
Okay.
But everything that takes place before that would be crazy. You have to watch Tucker and Dale versus Evil. It's on Netflix.
I will check it out.
I'd also like to see a mashup, like Grizzly Shark and Dread, or Predator and Grizzly Shark, like some one shots, like those Mars Attacks one shots that I like to read. Like Mars Attacks and Ghostbusters.
Well, now that we know there's more than one, and there's like a ton of them, I guess Dredd or whoever fights him would have to take on like a lot of them, right?
Yeah, like maybe there's like an underworld, like a Grizzly Shark underworld that.
Oh, and they like pop up for feeding once a year.
Yeah, and like they're in Mega City 1, and Dredd has to like go to one of the blocks and take care of them, or they're like, yeah, good stuff that happened with that.
I just love this. Like, how many pages is this? There's like a 4-page spread, 4 or 5 pages, where it's just people getting eaten, and this lady's like, I got a paper cut on a rock, and then she's just half of her's gone, and it's like munch.
There's just like a pink mist.
Yeah, and my favorite is of course the lady here. She's talking about her cramps and stuff, and then the Grizzly Shark just like eats her, and her tits are like just hanging in the air, like
suspended in time.
Yeah. And then they like somehow he perfectly decapitates this entire family eating at the picnic, except for the poor baby.
Right.
It's just horrible.
But
and then the ice cream and it was just perfect.
If anyone listening, if you're not watching or you're not reading this is, if nothing else, do yourself a favor and have a few laughs, because it's good stuff.
And then like the giant guy like somehow appears with like a steak knife to like
right?
saw them in half. Oh god, that was perfect. All right. Well, geez, that's like a hour and 18 minutes. I think that's good.
Yeah, I would say so.
Is there anything else we should talk about?
No,
I think we burned through all the notes here.
We did. That's everything.
Cool. So I wrote a little outro here. This is it for the episode. This is it for this episode of DDM. Oh my god, this is way more horrible than I thought. Maybe I didn't read this after I wrote it. This is it for this episode of the DDM Comics radio program. Leave us a glowing review on iTunes. Hit us up in the social spaces. Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram are all at DDM Comics, or email us at ddmcomics@gmail.com. Next time on the show, we will be discussing the Punisher, his origins, what he's about, and why he is such a hot Betty right now. Anything else?
Nope.
Cool.
See you guys next time.
All right. Bye.